Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. My name is Nathan Sutherland, and this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Today, we are going to be answering the question, what can I do other than making a family tech framework to help my family have healthful tech? Because the family tech framework is, in fact, the number one thing you can do. It helps establish a basis for healthy tech. But for some families, it just feels like it's too big right now. Like we're already in crisis. We're in COVID. We're doing all this stuff. We're working from home. What can we start like today, Nathan? What can we begin? And so that's what we're going to address today. I'm going to take you kind of through a top three, but we'll start with the one thing. And the hope from doing this is that there will be something when you finish this podcast, you can actually go to your kids or ask your kid if they're listening to this with you, to take that next step in the bigger conversation about how do we love God? How do we use tech? How do we ensure that we're not simply okay with this new normal, but we're actually being intentional with how we use our time so that we can love others and reach the full potential God has planned for us. So with that, let's get this conversation started. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast, a resource for parents who are feeling outpaced and overwhelmed as they raise children in a tech world. As an educator, parent, and tech user, I want to equip parents with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to raise kids who love God and use tech. Thank you to everyone who has made this podcast possible. It is a blessing to be able to talk to you right now, and I get to talk to you right now because people have been amazingly consistent. You have been consistent listeners. You have consistently shared what we are doing here with coworkers, with friends, with people in your church, and you've been consistent financial supporters. Gospel Tech is a part of a 501c3 nonprofit called Flint and Iron, and you've supported, so thank you for doing that. It lets Anna and I continue this ministry, and we are loving the opportunity to share each week through a podcast, through social media, through our website, gospeltech.net, and through the online workshop, where you can find that under resources on our website, or go to just gospeltechworkshop.com. So thank you for being a part of it. If you would like to participate, you can, again, share. You can continue to listen. You can support us financially, you just through the donate link on our website. And you can have us come in and speak at your church or school. What I love about this, and some people are doing this right now, so I'll just share it real quick, is this is a cool way for us to actually implement what we talk about on the podcast. The podcast is amazing for helping families do this with their own families, within their communities. And sometimes it takes a more holistic effort. So I'm working with actually a Christian school right now where we are actually going to do this kind of 4-step process we have of implementing this beyond just, well, this is going to be a focus week or even a focus month, but this is something we do with every family. And we make this part of our school culture. And we make this something that when people come here, they know we don't just simply yell at you about your tech. We actually help you connect the gospel to all areas of your life. And tech is something we use every single day. It's embedded in the culture of our country, and we need to learn how to apply the gospel to it. And so inviting us in, having us be a part of your life, and helping, roll out some of the tools we've spent the last couple of years creating is an amazing, exciting thing for Anna and I, and also a blessing to families and to our young people, as it helps us reorient the conversation, not about is this tech good enough or is it too bad, but it's about, am I using this technology to glorify God? Am I doing His will with it? Or is it becoming a distraction and therefore expendable, and resets that in a healthy way? So if you'd like to be a part of that, or if you'd like us to come to you, we do it digitally or physically. You can go on our website, again, gospeltech.net, and just under speaking, you can send some information in and we'll begin the email communication, or just reach out directly, nathan@gospeltech.net. So again, thank you to everyone who's made this podcast possible, and thank you to those who are actively applying it in your families, in your communities, in your churches, and who are inviting Anna and I to be a part of that, because it's an amazing blessing, and we're so thankful to be able to do it. So today's conversation is answering that question: what can we do to help have healthy tech in our family? And my first answer is always, all right, do the family tech framework, right? Like that is the answer. Like, do the family tech framework. The first part is going to help you implement the gospel and understand it. And the second part is about walking that out in really practical steps in 6 areas. So it's actually, all right, now that that's our basis for truth, now that it gives us hope and something to act upon, what does that look like when we address different content? What does that look like for internet safety? What does that look like when we make mistakes? What does that look like for the way we use our time? And it actually walks through the priorities for our family, right? So you walk through that, and then when there's an issue with technology, or when there's a question of, hey, can I go even play this sport, or can I go over to that friend's house? It gives us a way of kind of acknowledging truth beyond like, well, there's no Bible verse for this game or for that song, right? Like, how do we determine? Well, the family framework helps you do that, but it can be overwhelming. And I acknowledge that. I didn't make it to be overwhelming. Actually, it's the extremely condensed version. It was the online workshop used to be, it's now like a series of kind of 8 to 12 minute videos. It used to be a 2+ hour workshop that was just all one fire hose blast. And people would be like, this is amazing. And we were seeing very little actual application. People assented to it. They liked it, but it wasn't helping, right? I wasn't seeing kids' lives changed. I wasn't seeing practical steps taken in faith. I was seeing parents going, man, I should do that, right? So the online workshop, we're like, we need to fix that, right? This gospel tech framework needs to help families love God. It needs to give them hope, not fear, if we're really implementing the gospel. And it has. It's been amazing. And yet some families are like, man, it's still overwhelming, Nathan. Like, what can I just do? Just tell me something I can do today. Like, I've got work. I've got to make dinner. Like, I got to do all this other stuff. What can I do today? Here you go. Number 1, do a family dinner. The first thing you can do to help implement the gospel is do a family dinner. Now, that might sound tropey, and I heard it, and I almost didn't even want to say it. I was having this conversation with a friend. I was like, I don't know, right? Like, it starts to be like, well, just leave it to Beaver, and life will be fine. And we know that's a lie. So let's just call it what it is. Family dinner will not fix your family, but here's what it will do. It takes a certain amount of humility to have a family dinner, because you have to ask people to be there or demand people be there. But there's no way to fake an unhealthy or a healthy life in an unhealthy situation. If your family is not doing well and you're going to have a family dinner, it's going to show up. Here's what family dinner is not. Family dinner is not going out amongst friends and all eating in like the same room. Okay, family dinner is not everyone takes their food to different spots, but you all eat in the house. Like, we're talking about you make a meal and you sit down at home, even if that means you cook some kind of take-home pizza. But the point is, there is the waiting period before the meal when your family is going to do something, and whether that's you're all in the room or you actually cook a meal together, like that's best case scenario. You prioritize this, put it on the calendar for some point in the next week, and you say, hey, that day, Saturday evening, whatever, Wednesday afternoon, whatever time it is, we're going to make a meal together. That's super cool. If you have kids of that age, or if you have like my 2-year-old who just wants to smash up all the apples, like that's fine. And we weren't smashing apples. She just wants to do that. So you're going to have this family dinner because you can't fake it. When you all sit down, like, stuff's going to show up. And that's the point. First of all, that's why most of us avoid family dinner, is it's hard, right? People complain and they get angsty and we don't want to hear it and we're tired. And yet, like, that's what we have to do. Now that we have that pinch point, we don't just avoid it. We pray for that. We believe we serve a loving God, and we serve a God who's alive and who's powerful and who's died for our sins and has died so that we can do the good works he's called us to, which involves loving him with all of our heart, our soul, and our mind, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. And our kids and our spouse get to be our first neighbors, right? These are the people that we now get to love. And loving doesn't mean feel good about all the time. It means asking God to help us care, asking God to forgive or ask forgiveness, right? And asking for the faith to believe that he is who he says he is, that these kids, that our spouse will not bring us satisfaction, but instead we can continue to pour out of the satisfaction we get from relationship with God, right? That's what we want. I want to be able to love my kids because God loves them, even when I'm so frustrated. My kids are 2, 5, and 7, and I don't know if you know this, but those can be frustrating age groups. They can make a lot of noise. They can ask incessant questions. They can ask the same question repeatedly, and it can wear you really thin by 5:30. Like, family dinner doesn't always sound fun. Here's the thing with that, though, is when you can't fake it, we're forced to reconcile our need, and that's a beautiful thing. So when I just said, hey, have a family dinner, I didn't mean leave it to Beaver. I meant recognize why we're avoiding family dinner sometimes, because it's just so much easier and we're just trying to survive. And yet in that survival, it can get really easy to realize, well, I guess it just gets really easy to cause separation and be like, well, I just need a day. And then I just need one more day. And then and all of a sudden that's our routine. And now it feels almost awkward to have a family dinner because we just don't know what to do. So be intentional in breaking down that wall, because it's going to expose our need for a loving Savior. The second thing that's awesome about family dinners is that there actually are cool studies about the amount of words that are spoken at a family dinner. Like, even if you don't have the most deep conversation of all time, if you're not at all sharing your souls and having revelations about your childhood, you can just talk And in hearing families talk at dinner, kids hear up to 1 million more words by first grade. 1 million more words than their peers who are not having consistent family dinners. 1 million more words means they have a larger vocabulary. A larger vocabulary is one of the key indicators for a higher reading level. Reading levels aren't based on whether you're smart or not. They're based on whether you recognize the words in front of you and can make sense of them. Well, hearing people talk helps you with that. So if you have consistent family dinners, you have a higher vocabulary, which leads to a higher reading level. And reading level is one of the primary indicators of academic success. Now, I agree with those of you who are saying, yeah, but our system is broken. Why in the world are we so reading centric? Because some people's brains aren't set up for it. I get it. I've taught in middle school a long time. I understand. What I'm talking about right here is this is the system we're in. And this is just a side benefit that I'm throwing out there for you, that having your kids at dinner in consistent conversation does actually improve their vocabulary, indicating their reading level, which relates at least somewhat to their academic achievement. And that's just a side benefit, because the third thing is when you take the time to eat, this is why it's different than like a car trip per se. When you take the time to eat together and you take the time to have some of that quiet and some of the stillness that happens in a meal, and you take time to just share that cultural moment of food together, there is just this quality time aspect. And makes bad podcasting, right? The air quotes. Quality time, though, is a little bit of a myth. And so the reason I put it in air quotes is it's actually not about quality time. There's just time. And it really comes down to quantity. We have this myth. I don't know the historical beginnings of it, but I can tell you it is alive and well that, well, I'm just a really big fan of quality time, not so much quantity time, because I'm gone a lot. This is not to shame, by the way, people who are gone a lot for necessity in this season. I'm saying if we're getting comfortable in that and we're not recognizing what's happening and we're foregoing the opportunity, we at least need to address, am I doing what God's asked me to do right now? Maybe. Cool. Then you're fine, right? I'm saying for those of us who want healthy tech in our families right now, family dinner is the way to do it. Quality time is synonymous with quantity time. And I'll use an example. Let's look at camping. When people go, well, we're going to get quality time, we're going to go camping, versus we're going to go quality time, we're going to go on this trip. And sometimes we return from the trips exhausted and we went camping and we feel refreshed. And we're like, well, I mean, one was quality time and the other wasn't. Well, actually, it was still just time. Most of the time, camping is, think about it, you woke up, you ate a meal together, you all woke up in the same space, probably right around the same time. Hard to sleep in too long while camping. You have 3 meals together and you go to sleep at about the same time. In a single day, you can get like 4 or 5 days worth of hangout in, right? Compared to an average day of school and sports and running around where you see someone for maybe 45 minutes to an hour tops, depending on the age of your children. If you got 7-year-olds like me, that might not be true, but middle school, high school kids, they can be gone a lot. You go camping and you really soak in the time. Family dinner helps reclaim some of that. When we go on vacation, we're often so busy running and doing and being on vacation that we come home and we feel more frazzled than when we left. We feel more disconnected. My wife and I just went on a lovely vacation with my family, but I woke up before my wife, so I went and hung out with my brothers-in-law, right? My wife went to bed before me. I hung out with my brothers-in-law after she was in bed. And during the day, we generally hung out with other individuals. So we got home and we're like, hey, that was an amazing trip. But I do not feel especially connected to you right now. Like, how have you been? How was that for you? And I think that's what we need to look at with family dinner. Actually, we caught up over family dinner. That was when we had this little reprieve. Like, we were gone this entire time, but I feel like we need to catch up. And family dinner allows us to do that, right? So you can't fake whether you're doing okay or not at a family dinner. There's the side bonus of a vocabulary boost for your children. And there's this idea that when you have time is simply that, and you need to prioritize time with your family. If you want to ensure healthy tech in your family, if you want to ensure a healthy relationship with your family, dinner is a prime opportunity to do that. It's something you can plan tonight. It doesn't have to be every night. It doesn't have to be a spectacular meal. I'm not telling you it has to be anything more than Hot Pockets or Pizza Hut, but or Papa Murphy's or whatever you do. But it does need to be intentional. It does need to be with the phones put away, with the screens turned off, with an opportunity for some of the awkwardness of real relationship to show up. And if it can't happen, that's where the family tech framework would then leap in. Like, hey, like now you just proved to yourself you need an intervention, right? You need that next thing to guide you through it. And that's where the tech framework comes in. So if you can't just implement a family dinner because the schedule's too crazy or the priorities are too wonky or the family is just kind of at odds, that's where the tech framework comes in. It really helps you, again, fight for your family. It doesn't put you as the one forcing people to do things they don't want to do. It doesn't set you in an adversarial role. It allows you to say, hey, I love you all, right? I love you, spouse, husband or wife. I love you, kids. I am for you, not against you. And I know that God has plans for us, and I know I need to repent of stuff, and I don't even know where to start. The tech framework, it allows you to do that, and allows you to do it in humbleness and gentleness without all the final solutions drawn out, right? It's not you coming to them with a contract and saying, I've made what needs to fix about you. Please sign here so that we can be better, right? Placing the blame on the other party. It just starts the conversation. So that's why we're starting family dinner. Number one thing you can do this week, pick a time for a family dinner. And I'm not group, not like, friends can be there, but not backyard barbecue with a bunch of neighbors there, right? Like, this is going to be a time for you guys to actually hear more. And as a side note, conversation times are great at this. This is where you can ask about who they've been talking to, what they've seen online. If you're doing a family tech framework, this is the time to talk through some of the questions we give you in that about, hey, like what goes well about this? What do you love about that? Hey, what kind of makes you annoyed? What's your least favorite part of technology? Like, just, they're going to have personality quirks that you get to know around the things they're interested in. And family dinner is a great time to do that. If you're already doing family dinners, or that's not somewhere you're doing the tech framework, a second thing you can do is dumb phones. So if you've already got that first one down, the second thing I would say your family could implement today is dumb phones. And by that, I mean not a smartphone. It doesn't have to be a flip phone. So Gab Wireless has a great one that's very reasonable. That's just GABB Wireless. They're not a sponsor or anything. They're just a product I believe in. The basic premise behind a dumb phone is it is entirely tool tech. It makes phone calls. The fancier ones let you have GPS, and some of them even allow you to send texts without images. But they're just a tool. If you need to get somewhere, they'll help you get somewhere. If they need to return a call or connect to somebody, they let you do that. But they don't have any apps. They don't have any web services. They don't have anything that would they don't have any news stream. Nothing that can be a distraction to what you're trying to do. Another great one is the Wise Phone by Techless. And those are kind of the high-end fancy ones. If you're like an adult and you don't want a kid's phone or a flip phone, you want a phone that looks like an adult phone and can take pictures and stuff, you can get a Wise Phone, so you can actually get like an iPhone 11, but they have stripped it down and put their own software on it that is really slick, and it works really great. So dumb phone, the cool part about that is it's tool tech. It now lowers our distraction and it breaks some of our bad habits. I really like this about these phones because it's so easy. Like in my world, I rearranged my apps this week on my phone. I was just kind of cleaning house. I just don't want the dead weight on there. I literally only want the stuff I need. So I was cleaning out some apps, and that caused in some of my folders apps to change locations. And what I found was I will habitually go check sometimes social media for work during the work hours. Like I'm pretty good about not checking it outside of work, but during work hours, I'm like, all right, like I'm writing something, cool. I'll check social media real quick, and I'll click on it and swipe over. And this is just like a weird habit, but I was clicking on the wrong app. I started clicking my Google Docs because my Instagram app was over one. But my body was so trained that I click here, I swipe there, I click here, and I was clicking the wrong app consistently, like more than twice in a day. Clicked the wrong app because it was in the wrong spot. And that just told me, like, man, I'm so trained to go check this thing that I don't even look for it. Like I just have it in my brain, the mechanism of like, I swipe here, I click here. That's troubling to me, especially because I didn't actually think I used it that much. My screen time wasn't really telling me I was using it that much, but I'm using it enough that it's becoming second nature, that I'm not even looking at what I'm clicking at. So dumb phones help us with that. It just removes the distraction. I can check my phone from a browser, right? And that is an option, or not my phone, but my social media from a browser. And the third thing is it removes the power of 4 different trillion-dollar companies who are vying for your attention. They call it user engagement. They say it's because it's the stuff we want, but if we wanted it, we probably would already have it and we would have paid for it. Instead, it's free. And they continue to give us things that we are now being convinced we want, right? So when Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft all join forces, we have an interesting amount of distraction. We have apps coming at us out of this device that we've paid our own money for. And we need to take control again of our focus, and dumb phones help us do that, especially for our children. If our kids want to be on social media, that leads us to the third thing we can do. They can do it through our public tech. They can log on to the family computer that is in a public space, and they can get on social media, and they can communicate with their friends during the time of day that is set up for our social media use. The reason that's really important is this. If you're like me, you don't go on social media much, but you might go on social media often, if that makes sense. So I don't spend hours on social media. I don't scroll it for 30 minutes at a time. I scroll it for 3 minutes at a time, but I might do it multiple times in an hour. So after an hour, well, I was only on there 8 or 9 minutes, but I was on there frequently, right? Maybe it was just 30 seconds just to see if someone messaged, just to see if something's new, right? And it becomes part of how I behave in a day. And that's not okay. It's something I have to work against. It's something I've been around individuals who have to work against because it's disrespectful to people we're around. It's not a good use of our time and focus, and it stresses us out. We're constantly then thinking about, is there something new? And we're having to fight and inhibit that desire to go see if something exciting has shown up. And we start to take it personal, right? If nothing showed up, we're like, man, do I need to start sending people messages so I get stuff in return? Like it starts to make us unhealthy, right? In either how we engage social media or how we think about others or how we handle relationships, it starts to become transactional because we want something out of it rather than using it as a tool and going to it when we need something and walking away when we don't. So we have public tech. Okay, that was what all that was about with our social media. Sorry, I got passionate about that. But public tech, which means no tech in the bedroom. And by no tech, I mean no drool tech in the bedroom. You can have an alarm clock. In fact, I would encourage you to get one. They're anywhere from $5 to $35 on Amazon. It can be there tonight. And the idea behind that is you don't need a smartphone. You don't need $1,000 alarm clock. Please quit telling yourself that because I believed it for a long time. It's a flat out lie. If your phone is in the room, it will not benefit you. It only stands to distract you, at best distract you, and at worst provide opportunities in a weak moment, in a tired moment, in a frustrated moment to say something stupid, to do something stupid, to go somewhere stupid, and to make mistakes that cause serious harm and have serious repercussions. So we want to be intentional. No drool tech in the room. We want to have no cell phones at home, actually. So even if you have a smartphone, you turn it in, you use the public devices once you're home, unless you're an EMT and they're going to contact you for some reason over your personal phone, or you have a work phone, you have to keep it on. I get that there are variants to this, but we're talking by and large, we're modeling that for our kids. Our phones go away, they go in a drawer, they go in a box, they go in timeout, they go in whatever thing we need, and we have to have some kind of a family device. And if you have to save up for the next 6 months to get yourself a Kindle or an iPad or whatever device you need, so that we're not all operating on our individual devices in our individual rooms and our individual worlds of our own creation, but instead are relating together and are being present and are dealing with the relationships and even the boredom that comes with it, that's important. So public spaces means no personal devices that we're keeping to our own eyes and to our own space, and no private technology for distraction. And finally, just this idea of accountability and purposeful tech use. So something like the Griffin router, or the Griffin router is a secure router that allows your family to filter content just to keep the internet safe. Like when my 7-year-old goes on YouTube and wants to go do an Art Hub video, right? He can't click a link accidentally by clicking on the right and then getting through to something that's unkind or unhelpful, right? So it's a layer of accountability. It's a layer of intentional relationship. So even when we're on our tech, we don't believe the lie of anonymity, that somehow we're alone, that no one will ever find this out. Not in the creepy, God's watching Big Brother way, but in this idea that we want to glorify God in our hearts, and sometimes our hearts decide they don't want to, right? Sometimes we have moments of weakness or moments of just flesh rising up, and we want that extra buffer to help protect us from making stupid mistakes that we will both regret and that will impact negatively our ability to glorify God and to be loving to those around us. So those are the 3 things we can do with our tech. I said it was going to be 1, but just in case you've already done the other ones, to review them, it's the first thing we can do is we can have family dinners because it requires prioritization in our calendar. It will not allow us to fake family health. We will have to address our situations and know if a tech framework is required for us to be able to move forward. It has side benefits, and really it's just that idea of creating intentional time because there is no quality time. There's just time. Like being on my phone next to you is not time. Like I'm not being present with you. It doesn't count that my body was there. My mind and my heart and my focus is not there. So that's not time. Time is when I am present with you, not with somebody else, not checking my phone every few seconds to make sure that I didn't miss something more exciting, not checking my Apple Watch to see if that message was more important than you are, not checking my work email because I value that more than I value whatever you have going on right now. Like it's time. I'm being present with you. And that matters. And family dinner is a wonderful way to expose our hearts, to model this for our kids, and to make space in our lives. Second is dumb phones, because dumb phones also support that of being present and of having tool tech rather than kind of lying to ourselves about drool tech and allowing massive companies to bend their marketing arms and their development arms on engagement, which is to keep our focus and to keep our time and to get our resources and income. And the final one is public tech. No rooms, no cell devices. The cell device reason is because when you're on a Wi-Fi, it's easier to be accountable. So when you're on a personal cell device, you're kind of running in your own little thought country. And the idea is when you come home, you don't have this personal device anymore. You're now part of the family. And so those devices go away and you lose some of the independence that comes with a cell service. But that's just kind of a fun fact, side note. And we have accountability and purposeful tech use out that. This is all stuff we can do today, right? I want you today to think about what one thing can you implement with your family. Are you doing a family dinner? Are you doing it at least once a week? Can you make it twice a week? Or if not, are you praying about that idea? Like there are certainly times in life where it's perfectly reasonable to be like, hey, we're in a season where that won't work. We can't do family dinner once or twice a week. But do you know where the season will end? Are you aware of like, man, but we're getting through, right, this particular project or this particular sport or that, right, like this next thing. And we know at that point, we're going to implement this intentional priority for our family getting time together. That's great. Then that's all I'm asking is that you've prayed about it and you know what you're up against. But some of us are just reacting. We're just surviving. And we have to prayerfully take stock of, Lord, what am I giving my attention and my time to? What am I doing? And so convinced that it's valuable and important enough that I'm not making my family a priority, that I'm not making this time together a priority. Maybe it's because you all eat breakfast together. That's fine. I said dinner. I guess I just meant family meal. I can't say that dinner is any better than breakfast. I just know breakfast, most people are surly and don't want to speak. So I picked dinner, but I will acknowledge that it can be a family meal, depending on your family's schedule and timing and whatnot. So family dinner, dumb phones, and then public tech. And so your question this week is, man, can we implement one of these? If we're already doing one, can we do another? And if we're doing all three, is it time for a family tech framework? So I hope it's encouraging to you. I hope you heard something in this you can apply. And I hope you will join us next week as we continue to talk about how we can love God and use tech.